Filmmaking is a tricky business. On the one hand, it's all about entertaining the masses, while on the other, it's a business like any other. At the end of the day, though, making money's the name of the game, and when it comes to movies, there are literally millions and sometimes billions of dollars at stake. The following films were critically and/or financially successful, but they still suffer from some rather nasty reputations, keeping viewers away to this day. I'm Jess from What Culture, and here are 10 ways successful movies had their reputations ruined. Number 10. The Black Cauldron. The Black Cauldron is one of those movies that wasn't a hit when released, but has since become a successful cult classic. It was the most expensive animated film ever made when it released in 1985, and it garnered immediate controversy over its content, which was heavily edited. The original ending was determined to be too disturbing for children, so Jeffrey Katzenberg ordered it changed. The changes didn't help keep the kids from getting scared, and parents lambasted the movie, saying it was way too dark to come from the House of Mouse. That may have been true in the 80s, but after 13 years it saw a re-release, and the movie began to build a successful cult following. Despite the massive success the Black Cauldron has had in video sales, its bad reputation, calling it unsuitable for children, remains. The negative association is hardly fitting for a film that's rated PG, but it continues to damage the movie's reputation over 35 years later. That's a shame, seeing as it contains groundbreaking CGI animation, making it the first Disney title containing that innovation. Had the movie been released by another studio, it would likely have fared far better. Number 9. The Wolverine. X-Men Origins Wolverine has a bad reputation, though it's absolutely deserved due to its portrayal of Wade Wilson alone. Its sequel, The Wolverine, also has a bad reputation, which is decidedly undeserved, as this highly successful movie deserves more attention. The film's bad reputation mostly stems from its problematic third act, which wasn't the best, but it wasn't as bad as most remember. Up to that point, the film delved deep into Wolverine's backstory, making it more of a noir-type analysis of the character, who was largely depowered throughout the film. This was a Wolverine movie without the Wolverine most people recognize, and it featured another brilliant performance by Hugh Jackman. Seriously, the man was born to play Logan, and that's part of the problem. This film is sandwiched between a really crappy one and a phenomenal film everyone loved, Logan. In terms of success, The Wolverine managed to pull in 4 times its budget, making it financially successful. It was also a critical success and has a 71% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The Wolverine wasn't perfect, but it wasn't nearly as bad as most people seem to think, which is why it deserves a rewatch and a reevaluation. Number 8. Star Wars Episodes 4 to 6 Special Editions. If you're looking for a way to besmirch the reputation of 3 incredible movies, all you have to do is hand them over to George Lucas in the 90s. That's when Lucas, in celebration of the 20th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, fixed what wasn't broken. The special edition re-releases of A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi have an insanely bad reputation. And for most fans, it's well earned. Regardless, the re-release was a massive financial success, despite the negative attention they brought to the franchise. Most fans hated the changes Lucas made. He got rid of excellent puppetry and miniature work to replace it with now dated CGI. The original films still look incredible over 40 years on, but the special edition appears terrible in comparison. Also, he got rid of Yub Nub and insisted that Han shot second, which is ridiculous. Number 7. Mulan. Disney's been hard at work creating live-action versions of its beloved classics, and like it or not, the studio isn't going to stop anytime soon. 2020 saw the release of the live-action version of Mulan, and the movie garnered a bad reputation before anyone had a chance to see it. This was due to 2 main issues. Disney filmed several scenes in the Xinjiang region of China, the location of the Uyghur concentration camps, and the film's star publicly sided with Hong Kong police over pro-democracy protesters. These 2 issues brought nothing but negative attention to the film, which saw #BoycottMulan trending before its release. In terms of whether or not the movie was successful, it likely was. The negative attention pushed Disney Plus subscribers to watch it, and at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, it still managed to take in $70 million at the box office. Disney doesn't publish its numbers for Disney Plus, but it's likely the movie was successful despite the negativity surrounding it. Ultimately, time will tell if Mulan builds a following moving forward, but its bad rep is unlikely to fade. Number 6. Star Wars Episodes 1 to 3. Walk up to any Star Wars fan in their late 30s and upwards and you'll likely hear about how much they disliked the prequel trilogy. Since their release at the turn of the century, the movies have garnered tons of criticism from older fans, and as a result, they have a bad rep. If you're new to the franchise and ask a fan how to watch the movies, they're probably going to tell you to skip them entirely. Still, the movies, all three of them, were phenomenal successes. That's not solely due to their collective box office take of $2,549,200,000 though. They helped launch the highly successful Star Wars animated series and managed to pull a whole new generation into the franchise. They were the very definition of successful films, but their reputation is collectively awful. At least if you ask fans who got into the franchise through the original trilogy. For the vast majority of them, the movies are terrible. The hatred towards Jar Jar Binks seriously affected actor Ahmed Best, and the negative attention Jake Lloyd received after playing a young Anakin Skywalker effectively ruined his life. Number 5. Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is a perfect example of a successful movie that's earned itself a bad reputation. The film was both a financial and critical success, but that hardly matters for people who haven't seen it, because all they see is a movie about giant robots fighting giant monsters, and they think it's silly. The thing most people don't get about Pacific Rim is that it may very well be about giant robots fighting giant monsters, but it never tries to be anything else. The movie makes every effort not to rise above what it is at its core, and when a viewer can accept that, they end up enjoying the film. Sure, it's got a silly plot and central theme, but it's also stylistically beautiful, which is something you should expect in a Guillermo del Toro film. It also features a bunch of brilliant performances by the cast, which includes Charlie Hunnam, Idris Elba, Rinko Kikuchi, Bern Gorman, and Charlie Day. People have been talking down this movie since it was first announced, and seeing as it made most of its money overseas, it's likely those same people never bothered to see it. That's a shame though, seeing as it's a great example of an entertaining action sci-fi film. Number 4. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Edward Jr.'s Plan 9 from Outer Space has long been considered the worst movie ever made. It was shot on a shoestring budget, the film star died halfway through filming, and Wood rarely bothered to film more than a single take. It's a by-the-numbers bad movie. So why is it on this list? Plan 9 is the perfect example of a movie that's so bad, it's good. The film's a masterclass in how not to make a movie, and while it may have been entirely unsuccessful when it was released in 1959, it's since risen like a phoenix from the ashes to become a massive success. Because it holds the reputation for being the worst movie ever made, people want to see it. As a result, a movie that bombed upon release has made far more in video sales and rentals than it ever could have at the box office. On one hand, Plan 9 deserves its reputation. It's a bad movie. On the other hand, it's a massive success, albeit long after its initial release. Number 3. Kids. Back in 1995, American moviegoers were shocked and disturbed upon first viewing the coming-of-age drama film Kids. The movie, which was incredibly successful, having made nearly 20 times its budget, has a terrible reputation. That rep is deserved depending on who you ask about the movie. Kids centers around a group of, well, children, but their actions aren't exactly childlike. There's plenty of alcohol and drug use, but the real problem is all the sex. The movie opens with a teenager sleeping with a 12-year-old girl. A short time later, it's revealed that the boy, Telly, is HIV positive. Granted, he doesn't know it, but the rest of the film centers around another young girl he slept with previously, finding out she was HIV positive. Her efforts to find and tell him fails when she gets blackout drunk at a party, resulting in her being raped by another kid, who likely contracts the virus. You can see why it was so controversial when it released, and the times haven't changed too much since 1995 in this regard. Kids still has a highly negative reputation for being less a coming-of-age film and more a pornographic depiction of childhood sexuality. Number 2. Starship Troopers. One of the greatest science fiction novels ever written is arguably Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. It's on most military commanders' required reading lists, and it was one of those movies fans had to wait a long time to see. The book was published in 1959, while the movie wasn't released until 1997. When it finally came out, fans of the book rushed to theaters to see it, and their collective response was largely negative. It quickly picked up a terrible reputation upon its release, and the main complaint many people had with the movie was that it was almost entirely different from the book. If you've read the source material, you know this, but this is one of those situations where anyone who loved sci-fi and hadn't read the book tended to enjoy the movie. Starship Troopers continues to carry this bad reputation for ignoring the novel, though it's earned a more positive general reception in the 20+ years following its release. Number 1. The Cable Guy. The Cable Guy's an interesting film with a bad reputation. The movie was a financial and critical success, but leading up to and following its release, Cable Guy generated a buzz for being a bad movie, though few could point to why this was. The movie was made for $47 million and earned a little more than $60 million at the global box office, so it was financially successful, if less so than some of Jim Carrey's earlier movies. One of the reasons it ended up costing so much was due to Carrey's salary. He pocketed a record-breaking $20 million for starring in the movie, which was, and still is, an insanely large amount of money. As it happens, his salary was the reason the film garnered a negative reputation. The movie's rival studios began spreading rumors about the film being a disaster over the cost. Columbia Pictures may have paid Carrey's high salary, but it affected his peers' demands across the board. The other studios were angry that they had to shell out more money because of Carrey's mega earnings, so they trashed the film at every opportunity. Let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other ways successful movies had their reputations ruined. Also, let us know what other lists you want to see from us. As always, I've been Jess from What Culture. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. You can come say hi to me on my Twitter where I'm at JessMcDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more content.